Have you ever met someone who seemed perfectly put together, polite, calm, in control, maybe even charming in a quiet way? And yet, something didn't sit right. You couldn't explain it, but deep down, something felt off. That subtle discomfort you felt, it might have been more than just intuition. According to the Swiss psychiatrist Carl Jung, the most dangerous people in our lives are rarely the ones who scream, manipulate openly, or lose their temper in public. No, the real threat often wears a smile, a calm voice, a mask of generosity. You see, Jung believed that what makes someone truly dangerous isn't how loud they are, but how well they hide their inner darkness, not just from you, but from themselves. And that's exactly what makes it so hard to spot. By the time we realize something is wrong, the damage is already done. Relationships strained, trust broken, emotional wounds left behind. In this video, we're going to dive deep into Jung's most unsettling insight, the hidden psychological trait that quietly signals the most dangerous kind of person. Not the obvious villain, not the loud abuser, but the one who has buried their own flaws so deeply they genuinely believe they don't have any. And by the end, you may start to see certain people, and maybe even yourself, in a completely new light. Every one of us wears a mask. Not the kind you can touch, but the invisible kind. A social mask. A role we play to fit in, to be accepted, to survive. It's how we navigate daily life, how we present the best version of ourselves to the world. But behind that mask, Jung believed, lies something far more raw, a deep hidden layer of the psyche he called the unconscious. A place filled with instincts, repressed emotions, and something he believed every person carries, the shadow. The shadow isn't evil. It's not a demon lurking inside you. It's simply made up of the parts of yourself you've rejected or been taught to hide. Your anger, your ambition, your vulnerability, your jealousy, even your creativity or leadership. If those qualities were once punished, dismissed, or misunderstood, they got buried too. But here's the problem. What we bury doesn't disappear. It festers. And over time, that denied part of us begins to influence our behavior in ways we don't recognize. It can show up as judgment toward others, patterns of sabotage, random outbursts, or quiet resentment we can't explain. Think about it. Have you ever reacted strongly to someone else and then wondered why it hit such a nerve? That might not be about them. It might be a mirror, reflecting a part of yourself you haven't made peace with. Jung believed that the more we deny our shadow, the more distorted it becomes. Unacknowledged anger turns into bitterness. Ignored insecurity becomes arrogance. Unlived talents turn into envy. And the more we try to run from it, the more power it holds over our lives. Facing your shadow isn't easy, but avoiding it is far more dangerous. Because when we don't confront what's inside, it starts making choices for us. Here's a hard truth. Your shadow doesn't vanish just because you ignore it. You can suppress your anger, your fears, your jealousy, but they don't go away. They go underground. And down there, they grow. Carl Jung warned us, what is not made conscious will be lived out as fate. In other words, what we refuse to face in ourselves doesn't just disappear. It finds a way to live through us, often in the most unpredictable, destructive forms. Think about the people who seem calm on the surface, collected, rational, polite, but then they explode over something small, or they quietly sabotage their own relationships, or they wake up every night with nightmares that seem to come out of nowhere. That's not coincidence. That's the shadow trying to break through. Jung believed the unconscious isn't just a passive storage of old memories. It's an active force. When we deny parts of ourselves, they mutate. They show up as irrational fear, obsessive behavior, self-sabotage, or that strange sense of always being stuck in life, no matter how hard we try. The more we repress, the more pressure builds, and eventually something cracks. It might be a breakdown. Or, if we're lucky and aware, it might become a breakthrough. You see, from the outside, someone might look completely composed, but inside, they could be fighting a war no one else can see. So ask yourself, are you really at peace, or just really good at pretending? Because the longer you avoid your shadow, the louder it knocks. When we think of dangerous people, we tend to imagine the obvious way we lived in one and else. Because they call them Frankfurted to spled or different copies or cattle, we tend to imagine the obvious ones. The angry, the aggressive, the openly manipulative. But Carl Jung saw it differently. He warned us that the most dangerous individuals aren't the ones who know they're flawed. They're the ones who believe they're always good. You've probably met someone like this. They pride themselves on being kind, moral, righteous. They talk about helping others, doing the right thing, being the bigger person, but something doesn't feel right. Their kindness feels suffocating. Their help comes with strings attached, and their protection feels more like control. Why is that? Because when someone is convinced they're entirely virtuous, they stop questioning themselves. They lose the ability to reflect, to ask, was I wrong? Did I hurt someone? Is this about them or about me? And the more attached someone is to being seen as good, the more they unconsciously act out the opposite, because they've buried the very parts of themselves they refuse to accept. This isn't just psychological blindness, it's moral blindness. And that's what makes it so insidious, because when harm is done in the name of goodness, it's almost impossible for the person doing it to see what they've become. So, next time someone insists they're always right, always kind, always pure, pause and ask, what are they not willing to see in themselves? That answer might protect you from more than you realize.
Of all the warning signs Carl Jung gave us, one stands out as the most dangerous of all: complete denial of the shadow. These are the people who genuinely believe they have no darkness inside them. No anger, no selfishness, no capacity for cruelty or manipulation. They'll say things like, I'd never do something like that. I'm not like those people. I always act from a place of love. And they believe it. But that belief is exactly what makes them so dangerous. Because when someone refuses to acknowledge their own flaws, they have no control over them. They can hurt others without realizing it. They can cross boundaries and call it help. They can manipulate, judge, or even emotionally damage the people closest to them, while truly thinking they're doing nothing wrong. Jung understood that darkness isn't what makes someone dangerous. It's the denial of it. Ironically, the people who are aware of their shadow, who admit they have dark thoughts, hidden motives, or buried pain, are often less dangerous. Why? Because they've faced it. And when you face your own shadow, you're far more likely to set limits, to take responsibility, to avoid causing harm. But those who believe they're incapable of wrongdoing, they don't reflect, they don't apologize, and worst of all, they don't change. Because in their minds, there's nothing to fix. So here's the question to carry with you. When someone insists they're always good, always kind, always right, what are they refusing to see? Because what's hidden doesn't stay silent. It acts. And often, it acts without warning. So here's the final takeaway. Be careful with people who constantly present themselves as flawless. Always kind, always right, always moral, because when someone is too eager to convince you they're the good one, you have to stop and ask yourself, what aren't they willing to see in themselves? What part of their humanity have they buried so deep they don't even know it's still running the show? Jung's greatest insight wasn't just a warning about others. It was a challenge to turn the mirror inward. Because the shadow isn't just about spotting red flags in someone else. It's about becoming honest with your own reflection, facing the parts of you that are messy, flawed, angry.
When you accept your darkness, it doesn't control you. You stop projecting it onto others. You stop pretending. And you start choosing, consciously, deliberately, and with integrity. So next time you meet someone who insists they're always pure, always good, always the victim, pause. Not with fear, but with awareness. because recognizing their shadow might just help you meet your own. And that, Jung would say, is where real growth begins.